Happy Friday, everyone. Here you are at the story I'm telling myself. Welcome. Gary and I are so happy to have you join us for this conversation today. If you are with us, you know, I love to see you in the comments. Come say hello. Let us know that you are here. Welcome, Gary. And we want your engagement throughout this episode. So don't hesitate to do that. My guest today from England, Gary Spencer. Gary, please introduce yourself to everyone who you are.
Well, I'm Gary, and I'm wonderfully married to my wife, Beverly. We have two fabulous boys who are now young men, young businessmen. I'm a kind of just on the cusp. I've just retired, actually, 4 days ago. So I'm kind of in the middle of a pause at the moment, just waiting to see what's around the corner. So I'm expecting to turn a corner soon. But yes, my interests are, I've been over the last 40 years about being in business. I've set up several different businesses, and I have a particular interest in leadership development, small group dynamics, and I just love encouraging people and just seeing their latent potential just birthed in them so they can reach for the stars, really. I'm really into equipping people, making sure people have got the right tools in their hands to dig a bit deeper and reach a bit higher. But that's me.
Our friend Gail is here with us.
Hello, Gail.
I just popped Gary's LinkedIn link. That's a great place to connect with Gary, is on LinkedIn. And Gary has 1,000 TED Talks inside of his head from all of his experience. I name them to him all the time at the ledge. So if you've not joined us yet for Talk Me Off the Ledge, and you fall in love with Gary like Gail and I have, and all the wisdom he has to share, you got to start tuning in or go watch some replays of Talk Me Off the Ledge to hear all of the beautiful wisdom that Gary has accumulated in his lifetime of leadership, and how easily and kindly he shares that with the rest of us. So, Gary, thank you for agreeing to come to the story I'm telling myself. And you have a very unique story to tell, because you did something so many of us refuse to give ourselves permission to do. And that is to take a pause in our professional lives. So set us up a little bit. Tell us about where were you in your life, and what brought you to this thought that you needed to pause?
Well, often we hear people say that they would love to take a sabbatical. They'd love to take some time out and just kind of stop the rush in their heads, the rush in their lives generally, all the running around everywhere, like, the headless chickens. That we often are, and I've done that. I've been fortunate enough to do that 3 times now. I've taken a whole year out, but one of the times that I wanted to kind of share with you guys was very much the whole notion of pausing, of just taking. Sometimes it can just be a moment. Sometimes it's a little longer than that. And anyone that's been in business and been an entrepreneur will have done crazy things and will have been successful and will have had some failures behind them that they've learned from. And I want to share, I had a business that for its own reasons failed. We ended up in a tremendous amount of debt. We could fortunately get out of the debt by selling our home when we did that. Everybody was paid, so we didn't leave anybody short of anything. But I had this, kind of story, like a worm going around in my head, a thought that was just, and this thought was, seek me in the darkness. And I'd been through a dark time, so I thought, I'm not really interested. I was trying not to listen. To what was. But eventually,
what did you think it meant? What made you want to avoid it, Gary?
I think we'd had such a dark time in business, kind of getting into debt and struggling to get out of it and selling our home. And that was I wanted to kind of leave that behind, and almost felt as though there was something else that I needed to go and do in there. And I didn't really want to go back into that again. But nevertheless, I had this epiphany one evening. I was up late. I'd been watching a late night film on the TV, and still this thought seeked me in the darkness. And I thought, I'm a practicing Christian. I read my Bible, I pray, and I go to church and all that kind of stuff. And I thought, the old prophets used to get up an hour before daybreak. So an hour before light, they'd get up and they'd seek their God. So they'd pray and go through various rituals. And I thought, I know what I'll do. I'll get up an hour before daybreak. So I got my iPhone out, and the only thing I could think about that would tell me when daybreak was. So I punched into my iPhone, when is daybreak? Daybreak was 4:30 in the morning.
Wow.
It was now 1:30 in the morning. And I just said to myself, okay, I'll seek you in the darkness, whatever that means, and I'll get up an hour before daybreak. So I've now got 2 hours sleep before I need to get up. So I stuck to it. I got up. I went downstairs in the dark, and I left the curtains drawn. There wasn't much light outside anyway, because we live in the countryside, and it was just pitch dark, and I just sat there quietly. And I did this day after day after day after day, week after week, for several weeks. And then I picked up my Bible one morning, once that hour had gone, and I opened it, just randomly opened it up to kind of round about the middle of the Bible where the Psalms are. And one of the Psalms, Psalm 133, was a well-known psalm to me. And one of the first verses, kind of how good and pleasant it is when brothers dwell together in harmony. But in this particular version that I picked up, it said the word behold. And I just stared at this word behold. And I got my dictionary out and I had a look at what the word behold meant. And it's got two halves to it, be and hold. And beheld was in the dictionary there as well. And it said, be means to turn up whole. So this thought that was going around in my head was actually telling me to turn up whole. In other words, turn up exactly how you are, with all your faults, with all your worries, with all your concerns, with all your hopes and dreams. Bring them all. Bring exactly who you are. And the word hold or held was likened to a child being held by their parents. So this was a comfortable place to be. So this was turn up exactly how you are. It's going to be a nice, comfortable place to be. So each morning after that, I would get up and I would just sit quietly for an hour.
So did it change the way that you showed up in that hour before? Did those words shift something in you?
It changed everything, really, because during this time, we kind of closed our business down and we were looking to do something new. And I'd come up with a business plan and we were going to set up a new business with myself and my sons. And we we're going to raise some funds. And I've got this notion that, as many people do, you put the business plan together, you come up with this presentation, and then you go to people who you think might have some funds, and you show them how much funds you've got, and you look for some kind of match funding and kind of double the funds that you've got, and invite people to become participators in that story, and you launch your business. And one of the things that, from the word behold, when I spent a few days looking at the word behold, the next thing I recognized was not behold how pleasant it is when brothers dwell together, but this comma. There was a comma after the word behold. And the comma was like a pause. It's like a rest. And because I looked at the comma and looked at the whole sentence, the word behold meant kind of come here. I want to show you something. So this was, me telling myself I needed to turn up and look at what was about to happen that was already in place. So all the right people, all those people that was going to be good and pleasant to be in business with were already there. I didn't have to worry about kind of seeking them and sorting them out and trying to figure out who was right or wrong or whatever. The right people would come along into and get involved with the new venture. And they did. Within 2 weeks, we'd raised all the funding we needed.
Now, before you rush to that, we gotta slow this story down a minute here, Gary, because this is some really, really important stuff, right? So first, let's talk about, so behold, this idea of showing up in as your fullest, most authentic self, warts and all, right? And just being present in the space and trusting there's something, right? That was part one.
Yeah, this realization that the word behold actually meant kind of, if I said to you, Rita, come with me, I want to show you something. I'm just going to blindfold you and take you around the corner here, and I want to show you this fantastic vista, this amazing scenery. I want to show you something, and kind of I unveiled it your eyes and just said, behold. What I'd be showing you was something that was already there before we even turned up.
Yes. So this idea of behold
venture
is this trusting that this is what people often, I think, call manifesting. And by the way, welcome, Sharon. Sharon's going to be guest on Monday. But right, a lot of people talk about manifesting, this idea that you hold this thing, this idea in front of you, and that it is there. It is just a matter of giving the space for it to reveal itself. This is the same thing that you are talking about. It is having this trust that you would have these failures. You had all these reasons to doubt yourself. You had a business plan and you were about to step out and chase it the way you had always chased it, right? But you had this worm in your ear that would say, no, we're not going to do it the way we've always done this.
That's right.
Right? We got to change something. And I need you to trust that beautiful vista. Everything you need is in front of you, but I need you to trust and believe that who you are, all your words, all those failures, all those things, you get to bring all of that forward, right?
Yeah, because there's so much to be learned from those experiences. And before, you see, when I'd set up a new business, we'd slowly build the business and one block on top of another and trying to get the right people to get involved with us. And it was a bit of a trudge. It was a bit of a kind of a major uphill climb to get the business off the ground. And then you'd have these points throughout that you had, targets and stuff. But this new venture was, no, just turn up and rest and just see what's going to happen.
And rest didn't mean that you weren't doing anything.
No,
it just meant that you weren't doing the gerbil wheel process that you would normally do. The pushing the noodle, what we used to call pushing the noodle up the hill, right? So people talk about this in manifesting, about this ease and flow that happens, and that was your experience, right? You had this,
and also I think there was and often this happens. There's a failure, and I don't really want to talk about that. I want to talk about the positive things, and I'm going to be positive and push forward. And
did you ever have the thought that like nobody will invest in this business if I tell them that I just lost all this money on this other business?
I just thought, gosh, if I don't come up with a really neat package a lovely presentation, because most people's business presentation don't say, I failed.
Yes.
Please invest in me. We tend to kind of frame these things and we kind of push those things out of the way. So when we turn up to the business presentation, we don't turn up whole. Only the good bits turn up.
Only the good bits. Yeah. So, how many of us out there? I know Gary is not the only one. I know I'm guilty of this. How many of us only want to show the good bits? And we feel like we need the story we tell ourselves is we have to hide the imperfections. We have to hide the things that didn't work out perfectly, that we can only show the perfection, that we can't show the messy middle of everything. So you felt this calling inside of yourself
Yeah,
that
definitely.
you needed to change that narrative.
But the
And so
calling
what
didn't.
was the rest about? So the pause, the comma, the
I think
rest.
the if you think of a sentence, we have the beginning of a sentence, usually beginning with a capital letter, and we have the end of a sentence, which ends up with a full stop or a period. You know, you kind of that's the sentence. But somewhere in there, we have a comma, and the comma helps us make sense of the whole sentence. If we miss the comma out and we read it without the comma, we can sometimes get it completely wrong. And for me, this period of rest, this sentence meant that I could get tomorrow right. Because if I read it without the rest, if I charged into the new business venture without that moment of pause, without that moment of rest, that was the key that just unlocked the whole of the next business venture making sense before we even started on the venture.
That is so powerful. I have to tell you, like, I don't, I hope you recognize the power in what you are saying right now. But thinking about the start and the end of what you want to do, the capital letter, the period, and we all want to just rush to the period at the end
Yeah,
and forgetting that if we don't have those moments to pause, we can lose the meaning of everything. And how many people are floating in the world right now feeling like they have no purpose, no significance, no meaning in what they're doing because
yeah.
they've rushed from the beginning to the period of where they are right now and not allow themselves to
If,
have.
for example, in our business, in our new business venture, our first goal was to raise some match funding capital. So there was our full stop. There was our first goal: raise some capital. What happened in the subsequent weeks was we'd raised about £80,000 between us, and we were looking to raise in total of 160 just to start with. That was our kind of starting capital goal. Driving off to a conference with a friend of mine, she was born in the Netherlands. She decides to come to the conference with us. She's selling her mother's house, and she turns around and said, "Oh, what are you up to?" And I tell her what we're doing. I tell her I'm in this kind of moment of pause. I'm trying to work stuff out, and she just turned around and said, "Well, I'd love to invest in that."
Wow.
And now, normally, my normal practice would have been, "Oh, great! How much are you thinking of investing? What can it?" No, I said, "No. Let's go to the conference. This is my pause. This is my rest. Let's go to the conference. Let's enjoy the conference. On the way back, when we've done what we set out to do today, we can talk about the possibility of getting involved with the investment." So she invests with us, and her investment added exactly the right amount, so that within 2 weeks of me realising this pause moment, within 2 weeks we'd raised the £80,000. So we'd got our match funding within a fortnight. And the incredible thing is
So
we
I
didn't
think that's
have
pretty
to ask.
incredible.
We
Like
didn't
I
have
got
to
to ask,
ask anybody, because two
but
people came forward and said, "What are you doing?" "Oh, we're doing this." "Oh, we'd love to invest." Bang, there was the money.
so look, this was your fourth business, your fifth business.
Yeah, but this is
You're
our
used
fifth
to doing the
business.
deck, you're used to doing all these things, and you're used to when somebody starts to put money on the table, you say, yes, please, how much, right? I mean, you were conditioned. You were a businessman. That's how you were conditioned. Why do you think in that moment you were able to say, no, take the pause? Like what was it that allowed you to do that?
I think the difference, Rita, was that I think if I had to sum it up in a word, it would be authenticity. Where I'd moved from business to business, you kind of leave the kind of bad things behind and you only bring the good things with you. And there's a slight sense of sometimes, people suffer with imposter syndrome or thinking in the head that's going around. Their thought is, I hope people don't find out about this. Right. I hope people don't realise that. Or, you kind of bump into somebody from your past and think, oh, no, gosh, I don't need to be in their company. All that kind of stuff. Whereas this was a time where, the turn up whole, the behold stuff, all of me. So it meant that I was now presenting myself authentically.
Well, as an entrepreneur, we talk a lot in our circles about desperation selling, about people being in a place where they need to pay the bills, they need more business on the books, and how our feeling of desperation gets conveyed subconsciously in what we're doing, the choices that we're making. And one of the things that strikes me is you were not feeling desperate. I think maybe in the other 4 businesses, you didn't have the same centeredness, the same peace of mind that you had in this business about it's all there. It's just a matter of the reveal.
Yeah. And I think I probably had a history of convincing myself that I was worthy to do. So that imposter syndrome, I've got to convince myself before I can convince Rita. So I'd have to kind of couch the story in some way. And that just completely changed. That self-realization, that trusting in myself in a new way.
So you got the funding, the initial funding. You never presented that presentation you built, right?
Never to anyone.
Never to anyone.
And we raised over £1 million. And incredibly, we never asked a single person for any money. Every single person came to us, was interested in what we were doing, and they were recommended by somebody else, and the money came in.
Did you ever have a point where you started to question whether you had paused long enough?
No, because I think the notion of the pause became part of my daily routine. So when I was now, even up to now, really, certainly in my business over the past, I'm going. This is an 8-year period that I'm giving you a picture of. This isn't just something that happened last year. So, but we tend not to rush into anything. So we'll take some time out. I was in business with my 2 boys, so we'd take a day off. We'd go out for a walk. We'd go out for a meal. We'd discuss something. We'd get our whiteboard out and we'd have a business meeting. Then we'd go out for a meal, and then we'd go for a walk and we'd have a chat. And then we came to a consensus. This is how we're going to move in the business. These are the choices that we're going to make. And it was just so different.
It is so different because the other thing that trips...
With partners in the past, you were always kind of thinking, like, this is going to be a fight. I've got to fight my corner. I've got to make the best presentation so that the partners will come with me. I've got to bring them along on the journey. No, because it said, behold, how good and pleasant it is when brothers dwell together. So the how good and pleasant it is came after the behold, and especially after the pause. So now these people are going to be on board.
So many of us, when we own a business, we get to the place where we are either looking at people around us and at our perception of their success and feeling like, oh, maybe I need to be doing more. Maybe I need more revenue flowing through. Maybe I need more profit flowing through. Maybe I need more clients or customers. Or we have other people coming in from the outside, looking at what we're doing and causing us to question or challenge that. I often have one of the most common conversations I have with small business owners is, how big do you want your business to be? Do you have to keep chasing the next level and the next level, or would you be satisfied if you could just maintain what you have already? Because when they're feeling worn out, when they're feeling like they're overwhelmed by what they have already, why are they continuing to try to pour more things in? Did you guys face a place like that where you were questioning the pace and the choices of the growth of your business?
Well, I'd already been in business with my eldest son anyway, prior to this new business venture. And when my youngest son came back from the capital city, when he came back from London as a director of a company and decided to join with us in the new venture, one of the things that was different was that our experience was, this was unexpected. This wasn't how we expected things to work out. We expected to do it in the tried and tested way, to do the business presentation, to garner the support, to kind of have this uphill struggle in the first place to get the thing off the ground. And because it was so unexpected, we decided that we would deliver the unexpected in our business. And our mantra throughout our business has been to deliver the unexpected. So we looked for every possible opportunity to deliver the unexpected. So when we were a construction development company, so we would buy a piece of land, build a house, and sell the house, give it to the agent. So we had no customers. We had a business for the first time in our lives where we didn't have a single customer and no clients. So we would buy the land, build the house, give it to an agent, they would sell it, and then we'd get the money. So that was unexpected. That wasn't how we expected the business to go. But that's how it worked out. And I think, the first thing we'd do would buy the land. So the next thing we would do in the old way would, start digging and start putting the foundations in and rush into that. No, we'd buy the land, and then first thing we do would turn up and we'd do this kind of look around and say, who can see this piece of land? Who are the businesses locally that we're going to get involved with? Who are the people that we're going to employ? Who are the people that we're going to affect because we're building some new houses? And we go and meet with them.
So it wasn't even, it didn't stop at the comma and the pause. You were actually building a business that brought that whole next line.
Yeah.
How good and pleasant it is, right?
Yeah.
You were bringing that whole value system into the way you were operating.
Well, it was really strange. It was really strange. I'll tell you this little kind of anecdote. We on this one road, we bought this plot of ground, about 8 acres of ground, and another builder had bought and was building £2 million bungalows next door to us, and we were building £2 million bungalows. So very similar looking things. Two totally different approaches to business. The locals would be outside the site next door with placards, inviting the local authority to come and shut them down because of the mess the place was in. With ours, they all got invited every Friday for lunch. All the people that work for us, we stopped work, we'd invite them we'd have 20, 30 people turn up on site, put tables and chairs out, have lunch, buy food for everyone. They thought we were the best thing since sliced bread. They just thought we were fantastic. And, we turned up to deliver the unexpected. And we would go outside of our site every single day at the end of the day and wash all the road down, clean it all down. If there were tyre tracks because we'd had a delivery, It would all be immaculate. Everything was stacked and neat and tidy. The guy next door was just like a bomb site. It was just totally different.
So one of the things, as somebody that spends a lot of time with business owners, that stands out to me about that, Gary, is that each of those decisions had the potential to eat into the margin on the project, because it takes more manpower to clean the road at the end of the day, to keep the work site a certain way. It costs money to go buy food and feed everybody that turns up on a Friday. So when you guys were doing the pro forma for the business, and then you were going along and making these choices, did you ever doubt the financial decisions that you were making?
Well, what we found was keeping a neat and tidy and clean site meant that when the deliveries came, they turned up, they delivered, and they were gone. The guy next door with his messy site, the delivery guys would turn up and there'd be nowhere to put anything. So he'd spend half an hour or an hour trying to make space for that delivery to come. So actually, he was more efficient than we were. On a Friday, when we told everybody to stop work and we'd all sit around chatting and having food, every one of our subcontractors would turn up on a Monday to carry on work.
Imagine that. You treated people like people and they wanted to come work for you, Gary.
Half his contractors wouldn't be there on a Monday because they'd be drunk from the night, the weekend revelry or whatever. And they didn't
they had
care.
No connection or commitment, right?
They
weren't important. You were telling people they were important.
Yeah. And
you were connecting and building community.
When we went to our local supplier, we walked into the local supplier and we said, we're going to do £1 million worth of business with you over the next couple of years, at least. Who's your sales guy, local sales guy? And we go, and I'd sit down with the local sales guy, and I wouldn't just talk about the business. I'd tell him about waking up in the middle of the night, about getting up, about the pause, about the behold. I'd tell him all about, and I'd say to this guy, young guy, stick with us if you want to become a director of your company. Now this guy is a director of his company. We've delivered something unexpected into his life because he became one of the best salesmen because he stuck with us and we gave him all the business. So, spending that time with someone, inviting him to come on a Friday, and he would come out from the suppliers, come and have lunch with us, with all the local people and everybody else. So it grew the business in a really kind of virtuous whole way.
It absolutely did, because let's just talk about that example. So many of us, when we go into a negotiation with a supplier, we're asking, what are you going to do for me?
Yeah.
That's the mindset. But that was not the mindset you were taking into this conversation.
No. What are we going to do for you?
Yeah. It's so, this beautiful thing about pausing is that you get this opportunity to let go of a lot of habits that are actually creating the obstacles that are wearing you out.
Yeah. And so often we now find that our suppliers will call us up, how are you doing? Or they turn up on site. Now, that would be quite rare in our industry for the suppliers to turn up on site. Usually you've got to go to them. Ours would turn up. We even had, the managing directors of national companies turn up on our little building site because they'd heard about what we were doing and how different it was. And it meant that we could pick up the phone if there was an issue and it would just get solved. So getting the right prices for the materials, the suppliers sorted that out for us. We never had to sit down and say, I only want to pay X for the bricks. Can you get the price down? No. Because they knew that we would be giving them the business and they wanted to be associated with this, what for us was an absolutely excellent product. Our homes were beautifully appointed, fabulously built, incredible place. We had no problem selling them whatsoever. person after person after person that bought and lives in our homes absolutely love them. And the great thing is we wanted to hear that story of unexpected. So when somebody opens the front door in one of our houses, they go, wow, I didn't expect that. And they'd open the bathroom and they'd go, wow, I didn't expect that. And they'd open to a landscape garden rather than just 2x2 slabs and a rough patch, which is what you get in most new homes nowadays, and you've got to sort it out yourself. No, we would landscape and just be there, and give them a 2-year warranty on their home. So we turn up 3-4 times each year, fixing anything that was not working correctly, but there'd be so little that wasn't working because it was built so well in the first place. So we would just deliver that unexpected narrative would come back to us. We love living in an M&G. Matthew, Nathan and Gary, that was M&G Homes, was our business, and people just love them.
And it carries on. Your boys are running it. Well, we are coming to the end of our time, but I need to say something to everyone who is listening. If you came to this and you thought this pause was going to say, go ahead, don't, walk away from your paycheck, walk away from your job. That's not the pause that we're talking about here. And I hope that you are getting this, because there is a better workplace. There is a better way of working waiting for you. That's the vista. The question is, are you showing up as your fullest self? And really pausing and contemplating, letting go of your playbook. You carry a playbook in your head, a whole bunch of stories about who you have to be, the mask you have to wear, the things that you have to do to be successful. And if that is no longer bringing you joy, this is your invitation to behold and pause and believe that there is meaning and purpose and value and joy and happiness. And it could be right at the place that you already are. But are you bringing the right version of yourself to allow that to unfold before you? And maybe you need to pause and re-examine the stories you're telling yourself. Are you showing up saying, what are you going to do for me? Or are you showing up saying, what am I going to do for you today? These are the questions that are going to make the difference for you. But as Gary's pointed out, you've got to be in the quest. You got to choose the pause. You've got to choose the quest. Those are my summary comments. Anything you want to add to that, Gary, before we say goodbye to everyone?
Just one little thing, really. One is that if you're doubting yourself in some way, then the answers to that are in the rest. The answers to that are in the pause, not in the rushing forward, pretending that something isn't happening. That story that you're telling yourself, if that is creating a sense of doubt, then pause, find that place of rest, find the people to rest with, and then move forward.
I missed the T on not. The answers are in the pause, not in the rushing. That is the perfect message to end on. If you've joined us today live, thank you. Thank you, Gail. Thank you for sharing, for jumping into the comments. We loved having your participation. Gail, thank you for laughing along with us. And if you are catching this on replay and you have thoughts and ideas, add them into the comments, #replay. Gary and I will be paying attention to that. We would love to see your comments and get a chance to respond to you. Gary, thank you for sharing this really amazing story about this final chapter of your work journey. I know it's going to inspire so many other people. So thank you so much for being with us today. Join me again on Monday. So I got 2 episodes coming up. This was, actually, wait, let me pause. Tomorrow, there's another episode tomorrow at noon with Susan LaPlay Miller. It is International Women's Day, and we are talking about kicking your pleaser to the curb because she is stealing all your joy. So you're not going to want to miss that tomorrow at noon Eastern time. And then coming up on Monday, I got Sharon with me, Sharon Summerfield, who is on with us live today. We are coming together at 5 p.m. Eastern time because she is on the West Coast, and we are going to talk about feeling undermined. I'm being undermined. Now what? All of us have been in that situation, felt that in our jobs at some point in time. And if you're in the middle of that right now, I am sorry, but come join us. Get some wonderful tips from Sharon about changing the story you're telling yourself in the middle of that. We would love to have you with us. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great weekend. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.
Bye.